Hey, and welcome to OND DND, the TTRPG talk show hosted by Older and Dumber. I am forever DM and thrower of many minions at you, Hunter.
Have we really faced any minions?
Are you joking? We just talked about combats where you faced a bunch
the
of
dragon boys,
drakes and imps and
kobolds.
kobolds. Remember the kobold horde?
Larry 2, Fire Boogaloo.
Fire Boogaloo.
Yeah. Okay, I agree. Player that agrees, Joey.
Oh my God!
Airship Battle DM Carter over here.
That's a new one.
Damn, he's taking your DM mantle.
Apparently.
No, you're forever DM.
Welcome to this episode. Today we are talking. Welcome to this episode.
Whoa.
I don't know what accent that was.
Your own.
Today,
You made it your own.
I did. I made it my own. It's Hunter. Today we are talking about theming combat in TTRPGs,
My favorite.
making every battle unique. So yeah, we're gonna discuss how combat can be more than just rolling dice, and just how impactful the environment can be into people's immersion, all that type of stuff. But first, let's get the players' opinions on combat in itself. I'm going to start with Carter because I know Joey's opinion.
Combat's great. Just really depends on the DM and how they set the scene for it. It can be really monotonous and dumb as well because people are just doing the same thing over and over again in a turn order unless you're a spellcaster. So it's really up to like the actual layout of the fight and the place you're at and how it's set up, I would say. But the fight mechanics in D&D are the best they've been in this edition.
Combat sucks. It's boring.
Combat sucks. It's boring. Combat sucks. It's boring. Why?
Let me paint you a picture.
Okay.
You're
Artist.
DM and you make this fantastic battle map and you're like, oh man, all these triggers here, pieces are gonna fall, there's gonna be layer actions, this guy's gonna be up on a cliff and they're gonna have to figure out how to get up there, and it turns into there's a guy in the middle, the players stand around him and they hit him for 45 minutes.
Okay. How'd they get up there? How'd they get around him?
He started monologuing and they ran up and hit him.
Well, you described something that was a lot more difficult.
Yeah, none of it ever gets used.
Why?
Because the players run up while he's monologuing and hit him.
I don't remember what enemies have monologued for you.
Yeah, they don't get a chance. That's why you can't remember.
I don't think I've ever monologued for a villain before.
You wanted to. I saw it in your
eyes.
I saw
sure.
the twinkle in your eyes die when they ran up and hit him. It made a circle.
I don't know if I've ever had you guys circle me before. But that's not a good reason to hate combat. Why do you hate combat?
I agree with Joey that a lot of times combat can be really boring. It just really depends. Like, especially lower level, combat can be really boring because the abilities are low. Not a lot of people have cool things that can change up what they do on each turn, so it makes it harder for players to make combat fun for themselves. So it's more on the shoulders of the DM to make combat fun.
And you're coming into these combats like, oh man, Lord of the Rings, I'm a real Aragorn or Legolas, and we're going to have this cool dynamic fight, and I'm going to be sliding on my shield down the steps while I shoot arrows, and I fire 4 arrows at a time into them.
Those moments still happen a lot.
Well, when you're starting the campaign and you go, I shoot my arrow. Well, what next? Do you have a bonus action? No. Well, that's what you did.
Well, that's not so. That's the player. They have to try and come up with things that they want to do. If they decide that all they want to do is shoot their arrow, then that's what they do.
Sure. And you can say, okay, I run up here and I slide down the steps, and then you have a DM that's like, well, there's not really a mechanic in here for that. So you shoot your arrow and then you can walk down the steps.
Okay.
Why are you mad that I'm giving you a reason why I think it's boring?
I didn't get mad. I'm not mad at all. I'm not mad in any
Joey's
sense
on the
of
other
form.
side of the table now.
I'm literally not mad at any side
Well,
of the form. I'm trying to figure out what the part's upsetting, because It sounds like, I mean, there's that player who says, I shoot my arrow. Okay, what would you like to do now? Well, I can't do anything else. Well, is there anything you'd like to do? No, I can't do anything else. Okay, then you don't do anything else. But if you're asking things like, oh, okay, well, I want to slide down the steps. Okay, well, you have movement. You slide down the steps, but, you have to make an acrobatics check. It's not a part of a bonus action, but it'll use it up.
See, I wouldn't make an acrobatics check. If it's taking the same amount, like if you're not gaining anything and it's just looking cool and describing what you're doing, I feel like you don't need to. Like, that this person has the dexterity and you have acrobatics. You can set up a baseline where, like, how difficult is it to, like, actually slide down the steps? And this person has an 18 dex or a 16 dex. This doesn't seem hard because they're not actually gaining anything from this. Like, that's my thing.
I disagree with that, because no matter how good you are at something, even pros fail. So they should still make a check, but the DC is extremely
on harder
low.
stuff. I just feel like if you're not gaining any movement, if you're not gaining anything like mechanically reward for like this thing, I feel like people are less incentivized and less willing to do it. The average player. It's a barrier to entry, which makes it more people less likely to do it, in my opinion. Unless you're gaining some kind of boon from doing that, which rewards you for it. Like, if I were to slide down, maybe I have a +1 AC till my next turn, because in that 6 seconds, I have slid down, because everybody's taking their turn within the same 6 seconds.
Sure.
So, like, it would make sense for me if, say, hypothetically, this player wanted to slide down the staircase while they were shooting their arrows. Okay, I'll say, okay, because you did that, make an acrobatics check. Okay, you have a +1 AC until your next turn.
Where does the AC come from?
They're sliding down. It's really fast. It's hard for them to hit.
Okay.
So I would just do that. Like, if you're going to make a player make a check during combat for something that doesn't grant them anything besides rule of cooling it, then I just don't think that there should be a roll involved.
Yeah. Well, and then the time of combat too it always feels so underwhelming, because you spend 4 hours in a boss fight and it's like, that was a good one, guys. We beat him in 45 seconds.
I actually love that part, because that's how real battles are.
Yeah, but when you're you want it to be cinematic.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
That you
and
want it
then
to be
when you think
cinematic.
about it, like, logically, it's like, oh, well, that was the most anticlimactic thing it could have been.
I think that fights can be really cinematic. It's just like, once again, it just takes practice as a DM, I feel, to describe like all of the moves that the things are doing, like all of the activations it's activating and whatever. And like doing that and doing it well makes the players kind of want to do it as well, I feel. But I agree with most of your points that combats can be very boring, unless...
I feel like so many fights just dig into that middle spot, and that's where they stay, too. Because there's no incentive.
I disagree on that.
The monster's not going to be like, well, if
there's...
I take this chance to move away and maybe make them walk over here and trigger the trap, or they all get a chance to opportunity attack me, so why would I move?
I think that, for me, it really depends on what we're fighting. Like, if the creature is boring, then everything else needs to be spruced up. The descriptions, like how the fight goes, needs to be more cinematic. But if the creature itself is inherently interesting, because I see every combat as a puzzle we have to solve. What resources we use at that time, what actions and bonus actions we use in a turn to solve the puzzle, which is winning the fight. And I don't know, it's just... that part is interesting to me and fun.
Nothing else?
No.
Oh, okay. Well,
I feel like I've beaten my horse to death.
Okay, well, the first discussion here for this topic is how players can make their combat more unique or more fun or more interesting or more interactive. And some of those things are using like descriptive actions or using their environment or some sort of role play during combat or some sort of team synergy. What are some advice or tips that you can think of to give players more of a unique experience that they can
I feel
have
like
their
we were
combat?
already talking about this.
I know.
We went on too long.
Well, we did a lot of opinionating. So I'm asking very direct question now. What are some tips to make those things more fun? Very short sentences.
As a player, I
Yes.
think that an advice I would give to anyone that's trying to make their combat more fun is start small with descriptions. Like, just start by saying, like, he'll pull back and he'll focus as he aims in, and he'll let loose towards the neck. Just start with something simple, and then you can build off of that as you get to know your character and your abilities, and you can sort of, I don't know, like, it's supposed to be collaborative between DMs and players.
That's
and I feel like
part of the problem with combat too, because like I feel like those descriptive moments in combat don't matter unless it's the last hit. Because most of the time, everybody else at the table is planning their turn. They're not paying attention to what you're doing. And the DM's like, okay.
no one's planning.
He takes 7 hit points.
I feel like it's easier to do as a martial class.
I
mean, I feel like
combat's more exciting as a spellcasting class because you get more options.
I agree, but like the describing of like you really
I slash with my sword.
Right, but you have to
That's
describe.
the thing, is
like you
you're
can be
saying,
like, I'll
I
duck
slice
under its arm, and I'll go to the back, and I'll try to slice it at the back of its
Yeah.
legs. It's totally different than I attack with my sword,
Yeah.
or like stuff like that. I feel like that is something that martials are sort of forced into doing because
they
they
have
don't
nothing.
have anything else that they like.
Well, I don't think there's anything forceful about it. I mean, it's your choice to choose
Right, but
to
like if
flavor
you
that
are
up or
feeling
not.
like I feel like I've played a lot of martial classes in my time as D&D.
Sure.
And I feel that I get very bored with the class if there's not something interesting about the class that gives me more things to do, or I have to try to describe better in combat. And that makes it more interesting because I'm thinking of things that I can do and like moves I can do. But otherwise,
Why does a spellcaster find that more easy?
because they have spellcasters inherently have so many more things they can do on their turn during combat because of spells.
If
Like what?
If as a martial, if you're not getting items and things that give you abilities,
Yeah.
it's such a drag. Like Raza was fun to play because Raza had a ton of things that she
That's why
could do.
Joe Crease was fun to play.
But
that is the trade-off, is where martials grant a lot of power and stuff from items, where casters don't as much because they have all of these options just built into their class.
Yep.
Way more options.
They still do the same amount of stuff.
No, they don't.
Cast a spell.
yeah, but they
Right,
have
they cast
more
a spell, but they can cast
options.
from 40 different spells,
Yeah.
where a fighter can attack with a sword or attack with a bow or maybe a third weapon if they have one. Where it's not the same. And that's what I've liked from this new edition, has added some more
Can I
abilities and
AoE? Can I
stuff.
single target?
But that's
I
like
can bonus action
Yeah.
to move over here and then cantrip, and there's so much more that you can do as a spellcasting class that you can't do as a
in and
martial
out of
class.
combat.
So I think that comes down to the actual player, because as a person, I hate playing a spellcaster.
Well, yeah, you don't like all the extra flavor. You like, I hit it with my sword.
That's a lie. I 100% play the martial class way better than
Okay,
that.
I think that it is a fact that spellcasters have a lot more options that they can do on their turn.
They have a lot more options of spells to choose from,
that's
which
options.
is their arsenal. So for a martial class, you go into it with, this is my fighting style. I will make this fighting style my own. So yes, you still have options. I can,
Right, but what you're saying right now is that you have to describe that fighting style because you are forced into doing that.
Whereas-
So
what I
because
said
somebody
earlier.
Whereas
wrote a spell with, oh, it does this, it's way cooler
No,
than I
but
said I cast
the
this.
mechanic of the spell is different each time, or it can
Right,
be.
you can
The
describe
mechanic
your
of-
attack however you want as a martial. It doesn't change
It
the
doesn't
fact
make
that
it
it's
more
I roll a
interesting for the
d20,
player.
it does X.
Yeah, you still have to roll a d20 for your attacks, or they have to make a save.
Right, but the effects of the
spells.
spell is completely
Yeah,
different.
it could be
Sure,
an AoE,
because
it could
it's
be a
written
single
as
target,
a
it could be a
spell.
It
line.
could stun them. It could do a bunch of different things. There is so much more in
But
their
martial classes have stuff like Great Weapon Master. You make an
That's a
attack.
feat.
It doesn't. It's still part of the martial class.
No, anyone can take that feat. It's not a part.
Why would a spellcaster
I'm
take
just
Great
saying
Weapon
that
Master?
from the base level,
Yeah, baseline.
baseline, spellcasters have more options to choose from than martial.
Look at Fick, who was mixed.
Sure.
He was a gunslinger, but I was able to mix in so many things because I had spellcasting as an option,
Okay.
which made it way more interesting. And I
Again,
could still
I think this
describe
is-
that as an attack. Oh, I pull out my gun and shoot, but this time a little red ball comes out, and oh, boom, I blew up half the battlefield with a fireball.
Okay. See, but that's the thing. It comes down to the player. That's very fun for you. for me as a martial class, I love it just as much being able to run in and continue to cut people. Like, hit them with my axe, hit them with my hammer, hit them with my sword, whatever it is.
I think it's just a lot harder for people who play martial classes to make it fun long term than it is casters. I feel like if we took a poll between like just D&D players and said which is inherently easier like to have fun with in combat, spellcaster or martial, and I feel like most people will say spellcaster because there is just more like more things you can do.
Okay, so completely off topic. We didn't get anywhere on the question we were trying to get for.
I think
we didn't. The question was the tips on how to make your combat more unique. Not let's talk about why being a spellcaster is better than a martial class.
Describe your stuff
you
good.
were the one who went down that path.
Take an attack of opportunity to move and jump on a ledge.
Yeah. How can a DM make combat more unique?
The terrain, traps, stuff like that. One of my favorite things that I did in my campaign, which is why I labeled airship, is I had this one enemy, and he probably would have been boring if you went up against him in normal scenarios, but I put him in a place where he was trying to take this one person from the party, and he was willing to chase everybody everywhere, and he had a cool item that they could get, and he was good. I set him, and they fought on an airship, crashed the airship, were flying through the air, fighting each other, epic as shit. And like, if he just did the same thing over and over again, I feel like that would have been boring. But just like changing up where you're fighting these creatures is a huge difference. Like the setting is a huge thing.
I think different objectives too are important, where it's not always just like, I'm here to kill you, I'm the bad guy, where they could come in and be like, well, I'm here for this, I don't really need to kill you, or I'm not supposed to kill you, I'm here to incapacitate you, to take someone with me, and I'm going to get in trouble if I do. That changes everything. Maybe they're there for a specific item, and if they don't have to fight you, they don't engage at all. But if you happen to catch them, then it changes their strategy. I think strategy is a big thing that can change the dynamic of a fight, because it's not just, they're not there just to slap you with a weapon, and you're not there just to slap them with a weapon. There's an objective where it's more like you're trying to score a goal, essentially.
Yeah.
Interesting layer actions where it's not just like rocks fall on your head. Not saying that was a problem with the collapse.
Literally everything you've had a problem with is something I've done.
Oh my God. Stop taking everything personally.
Okay.
There's more things you can do with layer actions though. Like you could have the lights go in and out with darkness, and that changes things because it cuts off certain areas of the battlefield in line of sight. You can have, I don't know. I think that's important. I think movement's important. That's one of the biggest things is I don't think combat's dynamic, because it always winds up just being a group of people in the middle of a battle map.
I don't think that's true. I disagree.
You ran a super dynamic combat, so yeah, you wouldn't. But think of how many times we've just ended a fight as a massive miniatures.
Which is why I think terrain is super important. Like terrain, like the terrain of the battlefield helps keep combats interesting.
But I mean, it has to be utilized too, and so many times it's not. Like we'll have a 60 by 60 grid map, and it doesn't get used unless the creature has some crazy movement, like I fly 120 feet around the arena. It doesn't get used.
That's why a lot of higher end bosses have abilities during their lair actions or during their legendary actions to like move without opportunity attacks and stuff.
Yeah.
Which I feel like we've done. We just are not there yet. Like, you know, and of course, a lot of these things we're going to be picking from games because Hunter, you're our forever DM and we have not as much experience. So of course, you know, but I think most of the combats that Hunter has run have been fun. I have fun in most combats. They do get boring sometimes, but I feel like that just comes with the game. You are rolling dice and you are tanking turn-based actions.
Well, thank you all for joining us for this episode of OND DND, the talk show about TTRPGs that are hopefully supposed to help you, or just a big arguing fest like you get to watch, and whatever you'd like. But it's all about D&D, and we try to do the best we can. Please tell us about your combat interactions, your your opinion on what we've talked about today. And if any of them are good, we'll feature them in another episode. Thanks, guys.
Critique us Wednesday nights on Twitch, twitch.tv/olderandDumber, 8 p.m. Eastern. And catch up on episodes Saturdays on YouTube at noon Eastern.
Noon Eastern.
Noon Eastern.
Neastern.
Eastern.
Noonstern.
Noonstern. All right, that's enough. Hey there, dipshits. It's me, Joey, a.k.a. Slooty Mage.
I'm Hunter, voice of Hunter Taylor.
And I'm Carter, Deagle Eagle. We're
Older and Dumber.
Every Friday, we drop wisdom, humor, and a whole lot of nonsense. You won't want to miss it.
Become a patron today for as low as $5 a month. Get early access to all our episodes and exclusive behind-the-scenes looks at all the things we're doing and May's super secret editing notes.
Shout out to all our awesome dipshits. Your support really helps keep this madness going.
Join the crew. Be a dipshit. It's an exclusive club, and you're invited.
So dipshits, mark your calendar every Friday for a dose of Older and Dumber craziness. See you there.
Fade to black.
Now my stand. Fade to black.